Thanks. It's so nice to be here today. Again, we loved having you guys in Detroit last year, so we're excited to come out here this year. I am, as Gordon said, representing Urban Innovation Exchange out of Detroit. I see lots of Detroiters here. Hello. Hi. A few years back in Detroit, we started to notice a movement brewing of people who were stepping up to lead change in their communities. And it was kind of a nascent movement. These people weren't just urban planners or civic leaders in the traditional sense. It was a diverse group of citizens, from artists to block club captains to entrepreneurs and technologists and educators. And no one had really taken a full look, holistic look at this community before to understand things like their economic impact and the resources they needed to grow. So we wanted to better understand this work. And so thanks to some initial support from Knight Foundation, we started a 3-year initiative where we profiled 300 people. We interviewed them, we collected data about the resources they needed to grow and what they were using and how they're doing their work and all of that stuff. We told their stories through videos and profiles, and we hosted a ton of different kinds of events connecting people across neighborhoods, in some cases across cities, and inviting a lot of people to Detroit also to meet their twins and peers across different sectors and communities. And so we're really excited now to launch a new series. That was just in Detroit, where we kind of went deep for 3 years. And now we're excited to launch this new series with Kresge Foundation and our partners at Meeting of the Minds, with advice and input from our friends at Tummel and Kiva. And this is a new series we're launching today here. We're calling it People Changing Cities, and we are going to profile folks who are doing great work at all scales and sectors, because we think that is important. Gordon mentioned, from the neighborhood level to the macro city level. And we kind of want to expand this idea of what urban innovation means. So we hear a lot about tech, and we hear a lot about sustainability and mobility on a grand scale. But we also want to remind us all that in order to do any of these things, we need really passionate people, and it's the human ingenuity and passion that keep us all going, right, in our work. So we're launching today at uixcities.com. I'd like to invite you to check it out. If you go there, you can sign up for a weekly email. We'll give you a story of a new person each week. Today, you'll see a few stories to get us started. I'm going to put their faces up on screen. Is Rose here? I think Rose is on the agenda at this conference, so you may have seen her or will see her. But we have Sommer, and we have Bobby from Pittsburgh, and we have Randy from Cleveland, and we have Yale from Philadelphia, and we have Rose from San Francisco at Hand Up. And you can read more of their stories at uixcities.com or follow us on Twitter, uixcities. We're thrilled to have one of our innovators here today, Sommer Woods, to kick us off, right? She's the Vice President of External Relations and Marketing for M1 Rail in Detroit. And if you're unfamiliar with M1, I think Rip Raps is speaking a little bit later today about some of their work in Detroit. But just to give you an idea, we're talking about public transit in the Motor City, the birthplace of the automobile. So it's a big deal. It's a big deal project. And when we asked around and asked who's going above and beyond to improve their community, lots of folks talked about Sommer Woods' leadership and community engagement, which I'm excited she's here to talk about. She hasn't been just doing this with M1 Rail. We've seen her do this in the city for years. She used to work in the city too, and everybody knew her around town as the person you want to work with to get some stuff done. And I think this is more important than ever at a time when dwindling resources at the municipal level means we need to encourage civic engagement and participation and process, and really get citizens involved in shaping the future of their cities. So with that, thank you. uixcities.com, sign up, and here's Sommer. Thank you.
Thank you. It's so beautiful. When I landed here the other day, I said, oh my God, it is so beautiful. And as you can see, I always rep Detroit wherever I go. So I'm definitely a Detroiter, but to see the beauty here has been awesome. So just to kind of give you all a little bit of perspective about our project so you have an idea. Let me see if it's clicker. Is my clicker working? It's not working. I don't know. Okay, so let me give you a little bit of okay, so we can go to the next slide. That would be great. So M1 Rail, essentially, just to give a little bit of history, we, back in the day, in the early 1900s, we had one of the largest streetcar systems in the country. So what we're doing right now is we're really digging back into our roots in terms of bringing our streetcar system back to Detroit, Michigan. So we did start construction last year, and we're looking to have construction done for next year. So as we went through the process of just trying to figure out what did we want to do, we looked at other markets. We looked at Portland, we looked at Atlanta, we looked at Tucson, we looked at DC to really get a little bit of perspective of what do we want our system to look like? How does that feed into economic development? But most importantly, how does that feed into the community big picture? Our project is very different. It is a public-private partnership, which means that we have a lot of partners at the table, so our community is very big. We have our corporate partners who are at the table, the likes of Quicken and General Motors and Blue Cross Blue Shield. We also have the Kresge Foundation leading that from a philanthropic perspective, but we also have tax dollars. We have Tiger Grant federal FTA dollars, local dollars. So again, this is a local community project that is taking place. So the big picture for our project, it is a 3.3 modern fixed rail streetcar system. We have 20 stops. It's a mix of curb and center running. A lot of that in terms of the curb running is because we want to be able to cultivate economic development, cultivate the streets in terms of activities and walkability throughout the corridor. It is located on Woodward, which is our main spine, a very thriving spine of activity that's taking place. We'll have 6 modern vehicles that we will be using, and again, we will have it all connected throughout the Woodward corridor to connect up very key critical areas. So when we talk about our system, it truly is about connecting people in place. And so when we talk about the long term, what does it look like in the short term as we are building this project? So when we first started to build this project, we wanted to figure out how do we engage the community. As we all know, in terms of doing development, you just can't come into a community and say, hey, we're going to build this, and you have no part of that process. We wanted to do it differently. So what we did is we created a couple of community advisory councils. One of those councils is our Community Advisory Council, which is comprised of different representatives from the community. So it can be people that are subject matter experts within the senior community, the youth community, transportation subject matter experts, as well as people that are active in the biking and cycling community. It wasn't about just creating a community council that was everybody who was on the board is all in favor of the project. What it was about was having the subject matter experts at the table and to use that feedback to really create our communication plan, to create how we were going to build this system, and that's what we did. Our other advisory council that we created was the Business Advisory Council. So that was comprised of small businesses as well as big businesses. So not only did we have Quicken, as everyone knows in terms of Dan Gilbert and a lot of the investment he's doing in Detroit at the table, but we also have our small businesses, those businesses that have been here in the city that's continuing to thrive and to make sure that they are at the table to have a voice as it relates to the construction of the project all the way to the completion of the project. Community engagement is very important for us. Without community, a project cannot be successful, period. Communities matter. And so that has been our mantra from day one is how do we engage the community? We started having community meetings years actually before I started the project, but when I first started the project, which was very key, was to really get the information back from the community, from these advisory councils, to give us an idea of how we should build this project. What's important? As we all know, there's been a lot of conversations about community benefits agreements. We, as a federal project, we don't have a lot of the flexibility to do that because there are some things, there are some stipulations within that. But we have the ability with our board, who was very committed to make sure that we did have an inclusive process, to make sure that that was key for our project from day one. So we had series of meetings. We had meetings that were not always the best. There was a lot of emotions that were taking place. And I know a lot of times people get a little bit nervous as it comes to community meetings and what does that look like? What is going to happen? And so we have an interesting project because it is a private-public partnership and what that looks like. But we wanted to make sure that everyone was at the table, even the people that came to the table and they were rah-rah. had a lot of concerns, but we also had people that were very excited about the project, that we want to make sure that they too are a part of the table and at the conversation. And that's what we've been able to do with our particular project, with the community engagement, having everyone at the table to say, what do you want this to look like? How should we market it to you? What is it that can be beneficial for you from a long-term perspective with our project long-term? When we look at our community, Detroit is a majority African-American community. It's an infrastructure project. We wanted to make sure that those that were a part of the project were businesses who have been here in Detroit, that they've been holding down, paying high taxes, paying high insurance, all those things to make sure as we continue to build that we are not ignoring those people that have been here. So we were very intentional. That's the word I like to use all the time. We were intentionally inclusive to go out to make sure that the people that we were inviting to the table were reflective of that community. So we have our minority business as well as women and Detroit-based businesses that are a part of the project, that we're at nearly 26% inclusion for the project, which is great for an infrastructure project. But our board really took a lot of the initiative to make sure, with voting for a resolution to say we want to make sure that this project is inclusive, we've been able to do that. In addition to that, it's about workforce development. How are we creating a pipeline? How are we changing communities that they too will be able to provide and to tell their kids and tell their young people, hey, I built that rail. So when the system is actually built, they too can ride the system and be proud of the fact that they were a part of this project. So you start the project in terms of community inclusion from day one because it's a community project. And what does that look like long term? Because long term, we want everybody involved. We want everybody to ride the system, and we're starting that right now. So with that, what we do is we create a pipeline that can be successful for other projects, other infrastructure projects, because a lot of times people say we don't have people that have the skill set. Well, how can we use projects in order to make sure that we have people that have the skill set? So we can't have the same excuse of they don't have the skill set. Let's figure out to give them the skill set to make sure they are prepared to go into the pipeline for future projects. And we've been able to do that with our project as well. And not only is it building the system, it's also in terms of making sure that there is inclusiveness within an industry that may not necessarily be as reflective. So when we look at our internship program, we wanted to make sure that we had Detroiters and young people in partnership with Mayor Duggan in terms of making sure that young people have opportunities, that we also are cultivating young people and giving them the skill set to not only succeed within the classroom, but to also give them the experience that they can use to build for future opportunities. And it's not just on the construction side. It's those in terms of marketing, those that are interested in engineering, those that are interested within operations. This became a platform and continues to be a platform that they can use that experience and build for the next opportunity. And we've been able to do exactly just that with our project. So we're very excited about those young people that have had this opportunity to build this, to actually go on and gain other opportunities as well. Business support. So with our system, it's making sure that during construction that we have some viability for these businesses when the project is actually complete. We want these businesses to succeed, and so we've been able to do that. So overall, from a perspective of what our project is, our project, yes, it is very unique. It is catalytic as it relates to the funding of the project that you've never seen, a private-public transportation project within the country. But we also want it to be catalytic as it relates to how people do development. We want people not to be afraid of talking to the community. We want people to go in, have honest conversations, and be receptive to receive that conversation. Because sometimes we get a little bit sensitive in that, but again, we want to make sure that who is at the table, we're inviting the right people that's at the table to make sure that as it relates to community engagement, who is having the conversations with the community, that there's a sense of connectivity, which is very important as we continue to build all of our cities across the country. You look at Richmond, you look at Detroit. Let's just make sure, and that's what we've been able to do, is to make sure that the fabric of the city that has attracted all of these great opportunities and all these great new people that are interested in our cities, that fabric still sustains, and that's what we're looking to do, and that's what we continue to do at M1 Rail. Thank you for your time.